Is this lens special? Do retro lenses have a charm to them that modern lenses can't recreate? In this video I'll be comparing the 51.4D to, well, I've got the 51.8 and the 51.2Z. I've used it on my D700, but for these tests I've used it also on my ZF and my Z8 using the FTZ adapter. If you compare D lenses to modern glass, on paper they're always going to fall short, aren't they, with sharpness, rendition issues, but that doesn't really represent what's going on. And if there is a look to this lenses, can you recreate them with presets in camera or with editing? You know, can old lenses bring new inspiration and something different to the table? Okay, so let's go into the build of this little tiny lens. It's only 230 gram and it was born in 1995. If you find it online, you have to be careful of mould, because obviously if they're not weather sealed, they can get mould on the inside, which you can't clean yourself. And I use that on my D700, of course, which is great because this is quite heavy of a beast. And with a really light lens on it, it's almost like the lens isn't there. Let's bring that in. 51.8Z lens. Obviously, you know, I don't like the look of modern lenses. I think this is really boring and dull, not inspiring at all. But you know, it's only the look of a lens. It doesn't really matter if it produces great results, and it does. It's amazing. One of the best professional lenses and cheapest lenses you can get. There is, you know, it's half the size. You can compare it to the 1.2 lens of Nikon. As you can see, they've made it a lot smaller and like humongous. 1, 2, 3, and then obviously the. So let's look at some examples I've done today. I'm gonna have to put my glasses on because I can't see anything. When you use the D lenses on the FTZ with the mirrorless cameras, you lose autofocus. It doesn't autofocus. It's manual only, which is a real shame. I believe there is development of third-party FTZ adapters which will autofocus these older lenses, but obviously on the D700 you can, it's autofocus, and it's really, really fast, by the way. 1.4D versus the 1.2Z, or S you could call it, and you can see the difference. Is there that much difference? Obviously the 1.2 has bigger bokeh, which is to be expected. Sharpness wise, yeah, of course, the modern lens, the 1.2, is a lot sharper. And sure, the modern glass, the 1.2 lens, the bokeh doesn't have much of an outline, inside is nice and smooth. On the retro lens, the 51.4D has a terrible outside edge. And with colours, in this example, it looks almost the same. Let's compare it to the 51.8 lens, and you can see the difference in the bokeh, and that's because the 1.4 to 1.8. But let's close the 1.4D lens down to 1.8 so it's a fair test. Let's compare the 51.4D on the D700 versus the Z8. When it comes to bokeh, I think the Z8 is struggling to deal with the rendition issues of the lens, the D lens. So 2.8 on both of them, you will lose the round bokeh and it becomes like a hexagon, I think you would call it. A D700 with a D lens versus the ZF with the 51.2. So the differences here are obvious, and you can see the appeal for me of why I love the D700 with the D lenses straight out of camera. For me, I wouldn't edit that. There's nothing to edit. But with some editing, you can turn that mirrorless picture into the D700. You can make them look similar, but then you're not getting the same texture. In a way, the D700 has more of a filmic grain to it. The mirrorless camera, that's kind of how I've seen it. But with the D700 and the retro lens, it gives it a style and a mood, a kind of a retro feel to it. With editing, you can change. You can go some way to change that. You can see the texture difference with the D700, but if you look at the colour of the jumper, it's completely different. So I did manage to do a selfie with the ZF manually with a 51.4D. So with my D700, I program it to be leaning towards the green tones because I like that look. I managed to take the D700 to a wedding I did recently, and it had some really interesting results. So for some reason it underexposed them. Yeah, it was interesting, but I'm not sure I like them. There seems to be some kind of weird rendition. So I focused on the bride, but the groom has a weird kind of fuzzy look to it, even though they're exactly the same depth of field. Because of the bokeh issues around foliage, it makes it quite distracting in the background. And modern lenses are a lot smoother with bokeh now, most of the time. But I really like the colours straight out of camera, really nice. Because this is the look I would try and use a preset for to create the look. I think I prefer the Sony on this instance. But most of the time, every other scenario I've used the D700, and coupled with the D lenses, I've been really, really, really happy. When I first took this 51.4D out to do street photography, I made a video when I got back because I was so happy with the results. I felt there was something special about it, and there is something special about it. When it's combined with an older camera, they two work together and it creates something unique that mirrorless would struggle to do on its own, even with editing or if you have built-in presets. I love the charm of them, the retro, the colours, the texture. I much prefer it to mirrorless, where you have to put that on or in more artificially. So for me, I don't have much time to do editing projects that I've taken for pleasure, because most of my time is editing paid work, and so it's the less editing I do for my hobby photography side is the better. And the D700 with lenses like this make it so easy. I'd hardly need to do anything at all. I go around with the D700, the 35 and the 50, and I film with the Osmo, and that's it. This is highly subjective and personal, whether you like using old technology and gear and lenses. For me, the modern technology is amazing, absolutely fantastic. I'm amazed what it can do with face detect, and makes my life a lot easier as an event photographer when there's not much time and pressure. Maybe it's the separation, because I have my work tools and then I have the D700 and these kind of lenses, which are my hobby. I don't have the 51.4Z lens, which is supposed to be a retro design. I ended up selling it, which is strange, isn't it? Because I have the 51.4D lens, which has more rendition issues. So when they don't put the coatings on, it creates more rendition issues, which is character. The way it's trying to make a clean rendition at the same time as not cleaning it, it doesn't really make sense. It kind of contradicts itself with the cameras. For me, using the D700 and these retro lenses feels like I'm being more of an artist, more of a photographer. If I'm using my mirrorless systems, you know, I'm using it as a tool to get a job done, then I look at the back of the image and I'm like, oh, I've got to do a lot of editing here to put some life back into it. With retro gear, that already has a character which you can't edit so much because it is so strong already. And to be honest, I don't have a clear answer about all this. It's very much up to debate. So I'm putting it on to you guys. What do you guys think of results and my opinions of all this? Where does it all fit? I mean, is retro gear and these lenses inspiring? Maybe there is room for manufacturers to make DSLRs again. I don't know. Maybe they don't need to because there's plenty around already. And of course, my D700 doesn't do video. I like being a hybrid photographer. I love doing video and photography. And I think on photographers, we struggle for inspiration sometimes. And we look to gear and retro lenses, which have a mystique and character and prestige, to help us do that. You also have to think about the price of all this stuff, because this was £150, the D700 was £300. Mirrorless is a lot more and only getting more expensive with everything going on. So if you're starting out, or if you're into photography, not interested in video, then this is a great way in. And let me know where all this sits with you and what I've said so far and the comparisons, and I'll see you next time.